Check, check, check. Check, 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 check.
Somebody online? Or are you just recording it? Learning, huh? All right. I gotta bedazzle my shirt here. But when it comes to the the process of CSRs and dispatching, the goal is always the same. Is we want to help the customers we can get to, want to put the right tech on the right job and make money. And so then when we look at our processes, we've got our call scripts to book calls, and then we've got how do we decide who we're going to go to when. And we call that ultimately what's our criteria for customer prioritization. And so do you guys have a list of customer criteria as well? Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't, Gracie, you take us through your main concept of if a customer calls in for just service work or whatever, what's your normal script sound like? You guys have too many of them, don't you? What was the first one?
Paired up cleaning is on this one.
Okay. Well, take us through that. Customer calls in, ring, ring. Hi, Gracie. I need to have my ductwork clean. Yeah.
So usually what we do is we start with an inspection. How many leaks do you have?
I don't know.
Thermostat?
I think two. I guess so.
You have to know whether it's
Upstairs, downstairs. Big. Two. I think so. It's in my fence with my dog. It doesn't eat people very often.
And do you have a faucet?
No.
And is it just the one?
Yes. Well, I have a dragon too.
And what's the reason that you're
Just a lot of dust. We do have asthma, yes.
Having an air duct evaluation is the first step in getting help with it. Start by going through the house, locating and counting all of the different. I'll go ahead and calculate the duct runs and inspect the condition of the duct tube. Your home is unique, and this evaluation will help the condition of the duct tube. Your home is
Check,
technician to customize a cleaning plan just for you. After
check,
the
check,
evaluation, the
check,
technician
check.
will go over all of his findings and show you options for the cleaning as well. If he determines that your system needs to be cleaned, we'll offer you a variety of cleaning packages that range from a basic cleaning all the way up to a full deodorize, sanitize of the system.
How much do those cost?
It's different for every home. There are many factors that go into calculating the exact price of that. I do not want to give you a price that is too high or too low. There have been houses where the ducts didn't need to be cleaned, and then there have been a couple houses where they had been disconnected or damaged to the ductwork, and things needed to be replaced.
Okay.
Customers often get aggravated. A little bit aggravated at this one because we don't give them.
How much is your evaluation?
Our evaluation is going to be $125, and then they'll give you a couple different options on the cleaning. Depending on the package that you pick, we can refund that as a coupon on the back of it.
And then these questions that you started with, do you normally start with all these like you're interviewing me?
Mm-hmm.
What else you have in this book?
We've got HVAC and dryer vent, and then I think our chimney is this one.
And chimney is majority of what you guys do, right?
Yeah.
All right. So take me through the chimney one. How does that work? You be the customer. Ring,
To
ring.
Gracie?
No, I said you be the customer. Ring, ring.
Oh.
So Grace is the customer.
Oh wait.
I mean,
no,
you're
we
the
go
customer.
back.
Sorry, Elisa's the customer.
Oh, okay. Hello. I'm looking to get my chimney cleaned. You guys do chimneys? Yes. What city or town are you located in? That's fine. Okay. And do you have a wood burning or a gas burning fireplace? It's wood burning, but it has gas line. Okay. And then, so is that brick or stone or siding or stucco on the exterior of the chimney? Brick. And is it a one-story or two-story? Two-story. Okay. And just to give you a heads up, the technician usually gets on the roof to do an inspection with the cleaning. Is it a metal roof or a shingle roof? Shingles. And do you happen to know the last time that it was professionally serviced? I'm not sure. And then the home isn't currently for sale, is it? No. So what we would need to do is get you on the schedule for a sweep and inspection. All of our sweeps do include a full inspection, which is just going to allow your technician to get on the roof of your home and inspect that chimney from top to bottom. Get a good look at the chimney cap, the exterior, since it is brickwork. They'll get a good look at the mortar joints, as well as the flashing, make sure everything's operating as it should. He'll inspect the chimney from the inside as well. They're equipped with a video camera so they can run that up the flue just to get a good look at everything that's going on inside the chimney. He'll go ahead and make sure that there's no heavy creosote buildup, cracks in the flue lining, gaps in the mortar joints, things like that. And then after he inspects that for you, he'll go ahead and sweep that out for you. Let me see. For your area, it looks like the price that I'm going to have for that is going to be $279. And the soonest I've got on the schedule is tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow. That works wonderful. Okay. What was your first and last name? Melissa Nichols. Okay. And then what is the exact address of the home? 111 South Bailey. Okay. I will go ahead and get this appointment booked for you. As soon as I have all this information in the computer, you'll get a text message letting you know I've booked your appointment. The day before, you'll get a confirmation, so that'll probably be this afternoon. I can go ahead and confirm that on my side. That'll ask you to confirm. The day before your appointment, you will get a reminder message. Let me see. Make sure that you reply to that. You don't have to do that. Hold on. Okay. When your technician heads that way on the day of tomorrow, you will get a text message with the picture and the name of your technician so you know who's coming out. And what? Hold on, this has got it's got it blanked out of your name. Hold on. You'll get a text message and a picture of from the technician to let you know who's coming to your home. Well, your name. I want to thank you for calling CNC Chimney. Have a great day. Thank you. Welcome. See you tomorrow.
Good job. So here's the thing. We probably need to work a little bit on scripts. We can give you some copies of some templates to help take them to the next level. Okay. But when it comes to the script, I want you to think of it less as an interview and more like a conversation. Okay. So it's important to ask questions. So a lot of those questions that you were asking, those are what we call fact-finding questions. Those tell us, hey, what's the priority level here? Who needs to go there? You know, what are we going to be doing? How can we prepare? All of that. So there wasn't necessarily questions there that weren't important. But it's coming across a lot because of how you have your script listed out here, that it's just boom, boom, boom. It's all about the questions. In reality, we have to build a relationship with this customer. And the relationship as quickly as possible, in less than 2 minutes, we need to build a relationship that makes them, number one, feel relief that they selected a company that's going to help them out. And then number two, that closes their subconscious from shopping anymore. They need to be thinking, okay, I think this company is good. And you know what? They've got me on the schedule. I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to let them handle it. I'm going to go about my thing. Because today's society has these things in their pocket called smartphones. And It's like if we don't make that happen, then their mind still says, I wonder who else I can find. And they flip over and they call somebody else, because in their mind, it ends up just becoming a commodity. I just need to get my chimney swept, so I'm going to get whoever can get out here first. Now, you're always going to run into a few people that are like that. But for all practical purposes, if we can build value on the phone to really make them think, wow, this is the place to use, then they're not as likely to go and just try to get the next person, if that makes sense. And so there's a few things we've learned that can be very helpful. I'll give you a copy of it. But all of our scripts always start with, the customer tells you, it would say like, hi, I'm Matt with CNC, or it's a great day at CNC. This is Matt. How may I help you? Something like that. And so we're always going to start with hey, here's my name. This is who you call. It's a great day. Put a smile on the customer's face. And then they're going to tell you what's going on. Hey, I want to get my chimney swept. And so then we need the questions like, where are you at? Things like that. But the thing is those can come later. We don't want to put them too late because we need to know if this person's even in our service area. But I could say, hey, good news, you called the right place. We definitely do a lot of those. We can help you with that. Can I ask you some questions to better understand what you're going on and make sure that we can serve you well? Sure. What city are you in? Oh, I'm in Skytook. Fantastic. Have we ever worked for you before? No. Okay, so then I can go through a couple of those questions. But as we're going through them, we want to keep an eye on, is there any questions that can tell us what the quality of this customer is? Because as you were talking and asking those questions, those were all scenarios of the task at hand. I don't know your market, but I didn't get anything there that would say, if the customer has this answer, they're a really good customer. Was there any questions you asked that you're like, if they answer this question right, they're going to be a great customer? Which one was it?
Red zone, I guess.
If they have an animal?
They're dog people. They're good people.
They're good people?
They can.
So
It's not really.
I got my kids a golden doodle for Christmas this year.
Oh, I thought you were about to say
I'm
cat.
so
I was like,
happy.
"Ooh."
I'm not a cat person. We do have a cat, but it's indoor outdoor cat. But all my animals have to go outside. We don't do litter boxes and stuff. But we have a golden doodle, a husky, a dragon, a Komodo dragon, and a cat, I guess. So it's there. But my Komodo dragon eats people for lunch. It's big. It's my son's. It's big. It's like almost 30 inches. It's big. Scary looking thing. But anyway, so all that being said, while we're asking them questions, we're having a conversation, and our goal is to set them at relief. That wow, this company's got me. They're going to take care of it. So anytime during this that they're giving you feedback and you can enforce and show that you heard it, oh great. So we work with brick chimneys all the time. Awesome. We can definitely take care of this for you. We're looking forward to this. Anytime we can throw some of those in, that's always a big win. Does that make sense? Because it just solidifies in their mind that you've got their back. Yeah. And I know that sounds weird because you guys are on so many calls a day that you're like, they're calling us. Of course they know that. But they really don't. They really don't. A lot of times they're a shot in the dark of whether or not you're the right fit because they don't know you. And so if they haven't used this before, then it's just they're calling a stranger. And so if you were going to call a stranger into your house, would you be a little concerned sometimes? And so are they. So they're trying to find the right fit. So it's always our job to kind of create that connection right off the bat. Hey, don't worry. Excuse me. Good news. We work on homes. Sounds like we work on homes just like yours all the time. Hey, oh, you're on Robbins Way? Yeah, we work down on Robbins Way quite often. We got several customers down there. Hey, I'm glad to hear it. We can definitely help you with that. So stuff, anytime we can throw something like that in there, it always really goes a long way. But then your script currently, there's a couple of things about it that I noticed. One is it said our next available. I understand in the chimney world, y'all get backed out quite a bit, right? One thing we've learned about next available is that's a double-sided question though. So when you say my next available appointment, instantly something changes in the customer's mind. And what changes is they start trying to rearrange their life to meet your schedule. Now, the reason that's a problem is if they rearrange their life and you're like, well, we're currently booked out 3 weeks, so my next available is Thursday the such and such. But then they look at their calendar and, that's the day they normally play bridge with all their friends. They like playing bridge, but I got to get my chimney clean. So they start rearranging it and they think, okay, I'll skip the bridge game and I'll wait for CNC to be able to take care of this. They're like, okay, that'll be fine. But they put something that was important to them in their life on hold for who? For us. Now what happens if we don't hit that schedule? They're ticked because they missed bridge and they didn't have to miss bridge and now it's our fault. Does that make sense? And so instead of diving right into availability, I always ask for theirs first. And so I say, hey, by the way, just how soon are you hoping to get this taken care of? And if they say, well, as quickly as possible, say, hey, we'll definitely do everything that we can to get to you right away. Unfortunately, we are usually booked out quite a ways. So we've got 2 things going on. We've got our wait list that's generally booked out. We're at about 3.5 weeks right now. I can get you on that, but I can also leave your name on our flex list to where when we have emergencies that slots that open up, we might be able to get to you even sooner. Would that be okay? Oh, that would be great. Okay, great. Let's start by planning out about where we have. Right now, we're about 3.5 weeks out. Well, I've got openings after Thursday this. What day after that would be good for you? Or what would work well for you? And so now, again, put it in their hand a little bit instead of just, oh my gosh, this is the slot we have for you. Does that make sense? And so, and I know you guys probably don't talk quite as robotic as the script is, but it's just the thought process of, are we serving them or are we being difficult for them? Like what's really happening in this conversation. And so when we go through your script and you kind of start to retool your script, I want you to be thinking about it like that as, hey, how can we be more flexible to actually benefit the customer? That will ultimately benefit us as well. Because if they say, well, I would really prefer a Friday, that's way better for us for them to get a Friday than for us to push them into a Thursday where they might be unhappy because they missed a bridge game or whatever it is. So a lot of that can go in there. Some other things I noticed as you were going through that, you've got the what day is better than for you. Another phrase that can be very helpful is just, hey, in the event that we have some flexibility that day, are mornings or afternoons better for you? So like you mentioned that sometimes customers get ticked because, you're not really giving them a time, you're not giving them a price. So we got to give them something. Doesn't mean we got to give them a timeline, but we can give them something by asking for their preference. Hey, in the event that we have some flexibility that day, are mornings or afternoons better for you? And they can tell you, say, well, mornings would be great. I'll say, great, I'll put down here that you prefer mornings. And if that opens up, we'll be sure to let you know. And we just make that known. Does that make sense? Now, like in the air duct cleaning, for example, with not giving the prices, I don't give a price of the air duct cleaning up front either. It's bad when we do. It ends up costing us money. But we can still give them some thoughts that can help them out and to set them at ease. And so when somebody calls in for air duct cleaning, we might do something like, hey, thanks for calling Clean Heating and Air. This is Matt. How can I help you? They're like, oh, I need to get my ducts clean. Say, fantastic. You called the right place. We can definitely help you with that. And so then that goes in right away to kind of lock in that customer. I'll say, can I ask you some questions to get more information about your situation so we can make sure we get this taken care of for you? They'll say, sure. And so then we'll ask them questions that are what we call assumptive questions. And assumptive questions is instead of saying, how many vents do you have? Or how many thermostats do you have? I'll say, is this for your master or your guest area in your home? And they might be like, well, I was hoping to get the whole house done. Say, oh, okay, so do you have multiple systems that heat and cool your house as far as you know, or just one? And they might say, oh, I have multiple. Now, the thing is, if a customer has multiple heating and cooling systems versus one heating and cooling system, which one's better for us as a company? Why?
Because it costs more.
Might make more money, might cost more, but there's other things that make that better too. And what it is it's better for us, especially on the heating and air conditioning side. And not because they have more things to break or more things to buy. It's because we end up with a customer that has an ability to be loyal. For example, if you have a house that only has one source of heat and it's 0 degrees outside and their one source of heat goes out, how important is it for them to get somebody right away? Very important, right? But if we're backed up 3 weeks, what's the likelihood that we're going to get to keep that customer if they had no heat at all? Almost 0, right? But if they had 2 heating systems, could they wait a few weeks if they needed to? Absolutely, they could. And so we call those ultimately golden questions. Now, golden questions are anytime that we can ask an assumptive question, like, hey, is this your heating system for your master bedroom or the one for your guest? Or I only have one. Okay, then that notifies us that this is a customer that doesn't have the ability to be loyal in an emergency situation. And so what that means for us is their priority level to our company is going to go down. Doesn't mean we're not going to get to them today if we can. If I can get there right away to help them, we're going to do that. But if we can't, if we're backed up 3 weeks and there's no way for me to get there, then they're going to be less important to me than the other ones because I need to make sure that we get to the customers that we're going to keep, if that makes sense. And so on days that we're flexible, that we have a lot of openings, we always want to put our long-term customers ahead of the other ones that have the ability to wait in emergencies, because then when the emergencies arise, they understand and they're able to keep us from being chaotic, if that makes sense. A little bit different. But all in all, your scripts there are a good start. But the things that need to be added into them are what? The value. You called the right what? You called the right what? And we can what? We can help you. Hey, we can help you with that. I mean, in the event that we have some flexibility, how soon were you hoping to get this taken care of? Oh, as quickly as possible. Okay, great. Well, my next guaranteed day looks like it could be several weeks out. We're booking about 4 weeks out now, but you can go on our flex list and we should probably be able to get there sooner. On that list, we just call before we come. You want to be on our flex list, our guaranteed list, or both? Maybe both. Okay, great. Our service charge for that is $129. But that will get you on the list, and we'll go ahead and send a certified technician out there. We'll do a thorough evaluation of exactly what you got going on with your air duct system, figure out what kind of dust buildup you've got, and more importantly, where it came from and how we can keep it from coming back. At which case, if there's something simple or it doesn't actually need to be cleaned, there may not be an additional charge. Otherwise, if it needs some additional focus and it needs to be fully cleaned and serviced, then the technician will show you options before we do any work of exactly how much it's going to cost. So we only do work that you approve. Is that okay? A lot of times they'll say no. I mean, they'll say yes. But like when a customer says, well, I mean, how much is it? I mean, we want to get it clean. So exactly how much is it to get clean? So yeah, that's a really good question. We have a lot of options. We've got your top options that do a full clean and sanitary of it, all the way down to just, vacuuming out the dust. However, Mr. Customer, every home is a little bit different. And so we never want to give you a price that's too high or too low, but we generally have options that are down to just a few $100s if the price is the big concern. But otherwise, the technician shows you the options that are customized for your home to make sure that we only, so that we always give you the right information at the right time. Is that fair enough? They'll say, yeah. So something like that. I can show you my scripts, and they're better than what I just spouted off. But the idea is, if we make them feel like we're going to get them taken care of, then those questions about the prices of the ductwork and things, they become a little bit easier to overcome. And so when a customer is adamant about like air duct cleaning pricing over the phone, then in their mind, what do you think they're buying? it's just cleaning. You're vacuuming it out, right? So they're calling around getting prices because they think that no matter where they get it from, it's going to be what? The same thing. And so if you knew, hey, I just want this, like I want this water bottle, why would you buy it for $10 from one place when you could buy it for 5 from another? It would be a waste to do the other. Does that make sense? But we know that not every company is the same. Not every job is the same. And so what I want to do is I want to get that customer over the phone. I actually want to get their focus in the world of things like air duct cleaning off of vacuuming out the ducts and asking them some other questions. Hey, Mr. Customer, we can definitely help you get a price for that. But can I ask you another question? They'll say, sure. Say, do you know what type of dust and how heavy the buildup is inside your ductwork already? What's their answer going to be to that?
I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to say, I don't know. I'll say, okay, we'll come back to that one. I'll say, could you tell me how the dust got into the ductwork in the first place? Are there fractures in your ductwork that's sucking it in from your attic, things like fiberglass and rodent droppings? Or is this just dead skin cells from, 10 or 20 years worth of living in the home? And I'd be like, I don't know. I'll say, well, Mr. Customer, here's the deal. At the end of the day, the amount of work needed for both of those is drastically different. It could be from a couple $100 to several $1,000s sometimes. But these are also things that our certified duct inspection technicians look for in order to give you the right price every time. So, like I said, our inspection charge is $129. For that, we'll send out a technician. He'll do a full evaluation of your air duct system, what kind of dust is going on, where it's coming in from, and let you know what all your options are so that we only do work that you approve. And great news, I tell you what, I'll go ahead and notify the technician that as long as you choose a repair while we're there to do the ductwork, then he'll go ahead and apply that inspection fee towards it as well. Is that fair enough? They're like, sure, we can do that. So, because at the end of the day, if they're calling for duct work, for like duct cleaning, we know they generally have health concerns. I liked your questions about, hey, do you have allergies, things like that. Those are always important because if they have allergies and things, it needs to get done. And it's not really a price thing. It's more of a, hey, are you guys going to solve this problem or not? Questions? Adam, can you send our call scripts to Gracie? And send all of them. Send all of send the Funbound kit and all the fluid dispatching scripts and everything from the script file. I knew they had been through it at one point.
Did you finish the fluid disposal? Okay.
Good as is. We got a boot camp coming up.
Most of them are. Question is whether or not you've downloaded them. It's a download. You just got to download it. But and Grace, you may have seen them before too. You might even have a copy somewhere. But he'll send them to you, and when you look at them, not telling you that you got to convert 100% of everything over to them, but you to look at them and say, hey, what's the flow here? What's happening in the conversation with the customer of making them feel like they called the right place, that we're here to help, and then what can you take out of it and put into your process to just elevate the process. That's all we're trying to do is just let's just elevate it a little bit more. And so making sure on your scripts, like you've got a great checklist of questions. Well, let's make sure you've got a script that, hey, here's the foundation. No matter who answers the phone, this is how we answer it. Now, I didn't get that from either one of your scripts, but I think you probably all know it. How do you answer the phone? Is that the way everybody answers it, or just you?
Well, we're in a name change,
Yeah. However, you just say, we did a name change years ago, and we got rid of our name in the phone call thing, and we just say it's a great day at your service company. This is Matt. How can I help you? And then they would say, oh, is this CNC? Yes, it is. Or is this comfort class? Yes, it is. And so then that allowed us to actually purchase other companies and bind them to it as well. And we never had to retrain our CSRs. It's just always, it's a great day at your service company. How can I help you? And so it worked out. But you'll see that, I think that's even what it probably says on those scripts, is it's a great day at your service company. But you got to have a title. It needs to be on all of your scripts, kind of like a, hey, here's our base script, and then you've got, here's your questions for the different categories, is probably the best way to do it. But the script itself doesn't really change. The only thing that changes job to job is really your category questions and maybe where you're booking them. But at the end of the day, we want to always, reassure them that we can take care of it for them. Now, there's some other questions that we'll have to answer, and I'll talk to Richard about it over time. And that's, things like, what are you guys going to do with things like your service charge? So like right now, do you collect the service charge over the phone? Depends. What happens if they're not? Okay, so you get a credit card then, get it put on file, charge the service charge. Do you get an NTE also? It's an acronym, but it's not to exceed. So in other words, if the tech calls them with their options and they don't answer the phone, are they already approved for, say, up to $500 to just do the work? You guys ever ask customers that? Okay. So those are things that we just got to decide as a company, hey, how can we set the technicians up for success? Because like you were talking about when we first got in here, that a lot of times your techs go to the job, and then because they have other jobs and things, they'll reschedule to come back and make repairs on another day. That is one of the worst things we can possibly do for profit in a company. So literally the profit goes to zero when that happens, because of the amount of expense it takes for us to reschedule and come back on another day. If I got to come back on another day, I'm an inconvenience for the customer. So the likelihood of losing the job altogether goes up. If I have to come back on another day, that's another time slot I'm not going to get to another new customer later on. Plus, I have all the drive time and everything lost. And so whatever the profit was on that job, usually it goes close to zero. So we always had a saying that says the most profitable time to take care of a job we're on is right now. So if we have somebody that calls in, it could be a landlord, it could be an absentee homeowner that just lives in a different state but has a vacation home here, whatever it is. But if they call in for service and they're not going to be there, I would require a credit card on the phone. We would charge the service charge before we go there, and then we would actually require an NTE. So we'd say, all right, Cherish, good news, we can help you with that. However, just so that you know, when our technician goes out there, he's going to take a look at what's going on, and then he's going to call you to discuss your options to get it fixed, because we really want to make sure we talk to you before we do the work, if at all possible. Is that okay? I'll say, yeah, that'll be great. I'll say, awesome. However, when the technician calls you, in the event that you're tied up and you can't answer the phone, because sometimes that happens too, if the technician can't get a hold of you and they have to leave the job and go to a different one, it's going to cost you more money to get us back. And it'll cost us more time and money too. So we don't want that to happen. So in which case, to make sure that we can save you the most money, because you're not going to be home and readily available, we do ask for a not to exceed approval before we actually go there. What that means is when he gets there and looks at it, the tech's going to call you to let you know what your options are. But if you don't answer the phone, the technician knows that they're approved to go ahead and make the repairs as long as they're not over a certain amount. We generally ask for a not to exceed of $500. That's what most of our customers do. Or do you need to do one that's less? And we'll just ask them that. But most everybody just says, yeah, that's fine. And so then we get a not to exceed approval, which means when they go out there, if the customer doesn't answer the phone and they can make a repair for under $500, they're automatically approved to just do it. And then we just charge the customer's card. And so that's a nice little feature. But those are things that you might see some of that stuff in some of those scripts that he's going to send you, that you got to ask, hey, how can we work this into our process? But all in all, each one of you need a unified script that you all follows the same thing for your basic. And so it doesn't matter whether they're calling in for duct cleaning, chimney cleaning, or heating and air conditioning. The basic is, here's the 3 things we're going to do every time we pick up the phone. This is how we answer the phone. This is how we reassure the customer. This is the information we got to make sure we get before we hang up, no matter what it was for. Then you ultimately have your situational scripts or just your checklist that says, hey, if they're asking about chimneys, make sure you ask these 5 things. If you're asking HVAC, these 5 things. Duct cleaning, these 5 things. That makes sense? And so try to just make it very, very simple, because when you're on the phone, let's face it, you're usually in a hurry to get off. There's other things going on, and we want to be able to book calls pretty quick. So do you all watch a timer when you're on the phone and try to stay under a certain thing, or no? Just chat with the customer. How long does it usually take you to book the call?
Usually 10 to 12 o'clock.
Some of them talk a lot, don't they? So
We have quite a bit.
a little bit.
It's usually about 7.
Okay. That's not a big deal if it's slow. You guys ever have days when the phone never stops ringing? So on those days, do we just skip questions and get back to them later? We just go through them anyway? Okay, that's fine. And I'm not saying one's good, one's bad. It just is what it is. In big companies, like I deal with companies that have hundreds of trucks, and in companies like that, their CSRs are usually required to book the call in less than 3 minutes. And so if we're required to book it less than 3 minutes, what we're not doing usually is promising days. And so what we're doing is we're getting their information, and then we're letting them know that, hey, you called the right place. We're going to help you. Let me get this to our dispatcher. They'll find a spot for it, and they'll reach out via text message, email, or phone call and talk to you about what day we're going to be able to come. And so then ultimately they just take their information, reassure them we can help them, drop them on the board, and then the dispatchers communicate from there, because they can be getting hundreds and hundreds of calls a day, and so sometimes thousands. So I've got one company that runs, what do they run, 9,000 service calls a day. Crazy, isn't it? So 9,000 service calls a day. Insane. So their call center is really big. Depends on the trade, depends on what we're doing, what resources they have. Nowadays, with automated resources, we're able to take a lot more with fewer people, and so it depends on what you're using. An important thing to do, since you have Service Titan, you can look at call logs and stuff. So what I would recommend that you do is look at call flow for your area to see what time of the day you take the most calls. Because most companies, you're going to take about 90% of your calls within about 4 hours. And so in most areas, it seems to be between about 10 and 2 is usually the prime, and then it's somewhere between 4 and 6. So like 10 and 2, 4 and 6, you're going to have the most calls. And so you can only take so many in that time frame. But if I was going to say, hey, the easier way to answer your question is like if we're doing like outbound calling. Like an outbound caller, if they have an auto dialer, they can hit 200 to 300 a day. If they don't have an auto dialer, we usually focus on 100 a day. And so it's just there. If we're inbound, if they took 50 calls a day, that would be a lot.
Is
but
that with the 3-minute?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's how long do we have to book? But that's where your script comes into play, Gracie, is we've got to decide, hey, how much time do we have? Can I have 10 questions? I try to get to narrow it down to no more than about 3 questions about the situation for a customer is all we're going to be able to get on the phone. So we got to make sure that we pick the right questions. Outside of that, the tech's going to have to pick up the rest when we get there. But if I look at an hour's worth of time, for example, if I take 60 minutes and I divide that by, say, 7 or 8 minutes that you're talking about, so 8, that says I could take 7.5 calls an hour. But if that's the case, that's also not giving you time to breathe or put in any notes or anything in between, so that's not fair. So I would probably say about 6 calls an hour would be max, to give you time to reset in between them of what a CSR can really do with the way you're doing it now. And so, but if we could get that down to 3 minutes, then we could double that to 10 or 12 calls an hour per person. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So, but you just got to remember that we're not slaves. We need breaks, you know. Sometimes we need mental breaks, and so in which case you can only do so much. But how many calls a day do you guys take? Do you know? Altogether? Do you have an automated system that picks up the call before you do?
So ours is kind of like what you were saying earlier at your place.
Uh-huh.
Like it'll go whoever had the last call.
It'll go to the next one or something.
If Cherish had the last call, it'll go to me. If I don't answer, it'll go to Gracie.
So it just rotates through it. But does it ever? So when they call in, does it instantly say "Thank you for calling Comfort Class"?
Yeah,
So it does. Okay, and so it's doing all that while it's trying to find one of you.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. So there's a lot of different things now. Richard, you probably should reach out and talk to Rob again. You know, remember he was here, Rob? You ever talk to him? Okay. So he has went through a bunch of different call centers and stuff, and you know, his company does a lot of that. Yeah, but I'm saying for his home service company, he's switched to where all of his inbound stuff now, not all of it, but all of his after hours and stuff, and I'm sure he'll be on all of it pretty soon, is answered by AI now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think you did a technology.
Probably. There's a bunch of them. Yeah.
We've got those Google booking Quest.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rob's went through about 6 of the different ones, and so because he has Service Titan, but he started with whichever one they had, and he didn't like it. But he's switched to something. He says he's saving a lot more money, but he says it just works better. So, but yeah, he's gotten huge in the world of AI. But talking about how many people we can talk to and things like that with technology, it just makes that number improve. I don't like talking to AI systems, but if they're easy to deal with for what I need as a customer, it's okay. But at the end of the day, if AI did things like prioritized or screened the calls to get rid of telemarketers, like how many telemarketers a day do you guys talk to? Any? Yeah. So the nice thing about AI is a lot of times it can screen all that ahead of time. And so if it's a telemarketer, it can chop it off before it ever gets to you. So if it can get rid of all that stuff, and then the only thing left is people that actually want to book, then you can talk to a whole lot more people than you are now. Probably the same quantity, but same quantity of phone calls, but more bookings. So it can go a long way. And that's what we want to do. So anyway, any questions, resources, anything I can help you all with to succeed? Because we want Comfort Class to win. What's your Yeah. Well, and I did talk to him about it a little bit, but with your technicians, not my board, sorry. I've got a smart board. I just run my hand on it. It erases everything. So It's all right, Richard. I like your board too, buddy. I do. He likes this one better.
So
You-
with like
That's why he
Cody,
likes it.
he's got services today and he'll have a repair and then he'll go back to service. So if they can't see their jobs ahead of time, how would they know to grab the stuff from the shop to do the repair?
So that's a great question, but that's also the pushback and excuse you're going to get from the techs. Okay, but it's an excuse to not change. Right? One of my passions in life is I follow and watch self-made billionaires. These people that have built, I like one of my mentors that I've kind of always followed is Tony Robbins. You ever heard of Tony Robbins? Tony Robbins today owns 105 companies. He does $10 billion a year, which is crazy. But the thing about Tony is all of these self-made billionaires like that, the one thing they say is that the death of any business, no matter what trade industry it's in, is the phrase, that's how we've always done it. Okay. And so the first thing we got to do is anytime we're going to ask a question like, how can we do this better? We cannot allow anybody to say, well, we do it this way because of this. We got to get rid of that. And then we put things on trial just to say, is there a way that would give us more positive results? It doesn't mean it wouldn't change what we have to do. It doesn't mean it couldn't create some momentary bubbles of confusion. The question is the end result better? And that's what we got to look at. And so when we look at a tech's day, so like you're saying, hey, we've got 3 jobs on this tech, and this one is a repair, but it's a go back. Well, so what I'm talking about with Richard is we've learned, regardless of the go back, if a technician knows that they have 3 jobs on the board today, if they do that, it's almost impossible to get the technicians to actually follow the whole job process as it's designed. Because what happens is from the morning, they're thinking, okay, I got a job over in Tulsa, then I got to go over to whatever another town is, then I'm going to come back to Skytook. But you know what? Also tonight is my daughter's ball game. It's at 6, so I got to make sure I get all this done and get back in time. So they're literally planning how everything's going to play out before they get there. So when they go in, what happens is they go into the first job, they see one of 2 things. They either see a really simple repair, like, all right, let me just light that pilot for this customer, collect $129 and go on so I can get to my next job. Or they're like, hey, I'll sell the big job and I'll turn it over to install and I'll let them deal with it. But it's like they're either doing the bare minimum or turning it over, but they don't want to do anything more than that because that could make them late for their second job. If they're late for their second job, they're going to be late for their third job. If they're late for their third job, then they're going to miss their daughter's thing. And so in which case, that's not exceptional. I mean, not acceptable. And I would agree. They need to get to their daughter's thing, but not at the expense of burning what we call leads. No matter what is on the board, those are leads that we have paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars for. So going out and lighting a pilot for $129 is never okay. Because if a pilot on this fireplace is out, then we know, historically speaking, something else is wrong. Because have you ever had a technician go out and do a real fast repair and then there's a callback the next day or the week after? Have you ever had that happen? What's the customer like at that point? They're not happy. So then who gets yelled at?
Me.
You get yelled at for something you didn't have anything to do. And you know what the problem is? Actually, the problem is the board. The problem is the board is that somebody told the tech there was a full day's worth of work. And so the tech was rushing. The number one reason for callbacks is anytime we communicate with our team and our tech, that creates a rush sensation. If they feel like they have to rush to get done, they will almost always miss things, and we will have callbacks, we'll have customer complaints, and low revenue altogether.
And then normally after all that, we put their callback
Right. And so then it just gets even worse. I go back to that again. Man, my son has something today. And so now they're rushing even faster the next day. So there's a cycle right now, Gracie, that's going to have to be broke. Okay. It might take a few weeks of inconvenience to get through the cycle. But once we get through the cycle and get things cleaned up, it will make everything so much better. And so here's what you got to realize. You say, well, we got to go back to repair. How are they going to know about what parts they need? I say, why the hell didn't they fix those parts yesterday when they were at the job or last week? And see, what you're having now is companies that dispatch the way that you do generally have two to three times more of these return trips to put on parts than a company like mine did. We didn't have to go back and put on parts that often, because the only time we had to go back to put on parts is when we had to special order something. But even then, when we use a new flat rate, we show options. Average customer chooses a high option. We would do everything we could in that option on that day when they bought to get it as close to 100% complete as possible, so that if we were going to have to go to put on a part, it was literally just 15 minutes. Just swing by, drop in the part, and leave. Customer doesn't even have to be there, type of thing. And then we could schedule it accordingly, but then it was up to the office or the warehouse to make sure the parts were on trucks and things like that. And so in which case the techs would have a box every morning with their truck's name on it that said, hey, here's all your parts and stuff that need to go on your truck, put them on your truck. And they would put them on their truck. What are these for? If we get to it, we'll get to them, and it's there. So we would either load the truck that morning of our plan, or if we weren't sure, like if I had parts that needed to go back not here, but I had the parts that needed to go back here on the third call, I can't promise that this tech's going to make it to that call today. And so in which case, I'm probably going to leave those parts here in the office. And if the technician finishes this job, I'll send a part runner to meet him at the other job with the part, or I'll have him swing back here to pick it up on the way to the job, whatever it is. You guys have parts runners here?
Not really. And so we've got Tyler, which is our service manager, so usually half the time he's the parts runner if we do have to have one. But would it not cost us more money to have Tyler drive from here to Coweta?
No, not compared to a tech rushing. Because if a tech's rushing, his average ticket is lower. So for example, the companies that utilize the new flat rate as designed, their average repair ticket is over $1,000, and their closing rate is generally over 90%, which means if they run 9 jobs, they're picking up at least $9,000. Does that make sense? And I'm not talking about selling any big chimney jobs. I'm just talking about just average little stuff. And so, whereas when I have companies that open their whole schedule to the techs and they see their day, the average service ticket is generally under $400, and their closing rate is usually under 70%. And so in which case they're only getting 6 out of 10 jobs instead of 9 out of 10 jobs, and half of the revenue. So if they run 10 jobs, they're getting $3,000 compared to my $9,000. So if we were averaging $9,000 off of 10 jobs instead of 3,000, could we afford to send Tyler to drop off a part?
Yeah, I just feel like in chimneys everything has to be ordered, so I feel like that's gonna be hard to
Sometimes
keep
they
it on
do.
the truck.
And sometimes they do. And so the thing is when we have to order parts and things, we have to order parts. But we also have to ask ourselves the questions, are everything really having to be ordered, or are we ordering them because that's how we've always done them? And some of these are questions that you won't be able to answer today. Some of those are questions that Tyler's going to have to answer, and Richard's going to have to answer. Does that make sense though?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a right or wrong way, like this is the only way to do it. There's more than one way to do it. But we have to look at the most important things. The most profitable time to take care of a job that we're on, if at all possible, is when. Now, and if the tech's trying to get to the next call, are they more likely or less likely to take care of this job now? Less likely. And so that's kind of what Richard's talking about is we focus on the fact that the only body that sees the whole day is y'all. Y'all get to see the plan for the day. And you know what? We try to have resources and stuff available so that techs are prepared for things. But at the end of the day, even if we don't get back to that second job, the techs have to get to the place to where they go to a job and they maximize that job. We call it camping. And it's a big win. It creates a high quality problem, but it's a big win when a technician can go to his first call of the day and literally sell out the entire day's worth of work. Like that's a big win. And as a company, we got to celebrate it and not wince. But so many times the tech's like, I'm going to be here all day. And you're like, crap, now what do I do with all this stuff? But the thing is, we do the best we can. We get to the people that we can get to. We help the people we can help. And we make a lot of money in the meantime to benefit who? Everybody. Because if this company, if you came to work tomorrow, it's not going to happen, so don't worry, I'm just an example. But if you came to work tomorrow and Richard sat all of you down and said, okay, I just want to let you know that there's no money, and so CNC is not going to be able to pay anybody anymore. But we're still looking for volunteers that want to stay behind and keep helping the people of Skiatook because we want to continue to help serve all the people here. How many of us would actually stay and work for free? You what? Are you related? Is that your dad? That's fine. I think I've met you before now that you say that. So now, it's not actually true. How old are you? 19. You still live at home? Okay, but now take yourself out of that mix and say that you didn't live at home, but you still worked for your dad, but you had your own apartment to pay for. And he said, I can't pay you anymore. Choice or not, what would you have to do? Eventually, you'd have to find a paying job, wouldn't you? Yeah. And the thing is, by the way, if that ever happens, call me, okay? Because then I'm going to call your dad and I'm going to tell him to go get a real job. So, but the point is I actually do talk to business owners just like your dad. I've told Richard this before. I've said, listen, if your company's not going to be really profitable, then close the doors and go work for somebody else. Because the purpose of the company is to turn a profit to benefit who? Everybody. If it's not turning a profit, then all it's doing is holding all of us back. And that's what we got to realize in all your positions. I know that it's not your company to worry about. That's his job. But we've got to realize that our decisions that you're making of if you send a technician out there just because, I'm going to use a heartstring thing, some little old lady doesn't have heat. Oh, she doesn't have heat. She needs help. First question we have to ask is it possible this little old lady has money or not? Because if she doesn't, if we're thinking, hey, there's not any opportunity there, we're not going to make any money on this job, then we either have money in our charity account or we don't. It's just that simple. And so I like companies that give service technicians what we call a red card, which each technician gets like one red card a year or a quarter or however they want to do it, that says, hey, you have a red card and you can use this to fix somebody's something for free. So if you have a customer that calls in and they have no money and they really need help and you really want us to help that customer, we will do it for free if you turn in your red card. But that's the only one you get. And so everybody else has to pay. Hey, hey, welcome back. Surviving? Really? But that's essentially what he wanted me to talk to you about is we got to get to the point where they're not looking at their whole day, so they're not rushing, so that they're maximizing. And then we've just got to adjust and plan for things like parts. If we have to order parts, great. You know, did we do everything else we could have on that job? So when we go back, how much time are we going to need? And now let's just say that they are going to need to order parts. Are your technicians currently collecting for the entire job up front? No? So that's something that we should work towards in the future. And I'll talk to Richard about it and Tyler. But my techs are required to charge and collect for the whole job if we're going to order anything. And so the reason being is if we haven't collected, who's going to pay for the parts?
We require, I think, half,
Half?
unless it's financing. And if it's financing, we keep full half to go until the full amount.
Oh, so you either finance all of it or you don't?
Mm.
I gotcha. And so some finance companies don't allow you to run it till it's done.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So you can work through that, but the point is we always ask for the money up front. But if a customer's given us money and we have not done the work yet, what's the priority level of that customer?
Very high.
Very high. It's the most important customer we have. If they've already paid us money, they are the most important. And so in those cases, if we can schedule those ones first thing of the day, that would solve that problem too. You know, hey, all of our go back calls are first thing in the morning to finish up those jobs, and then we'll get to who we get to because they are the most important. But it's all about just kind of controlling that priority and saying, hey, what's a way around this so that it's not a problem for you? But the same goes to where I had given him the parts on the job, but he didn't necessarily know about it, so he wasn't rushing, but he sold out his day on the first job and then wasn't going to get to it. I might still need to reroute a different tech to go back and finish that one. And so they might have to pick up the parts from him or whatever. And so at the end of the day, we just sometimes have to do what we got to do to juggle things around. But if we look at them as wins instead of inconveniences, then it's generally not that hard to fix. And sometimes a customer gets upset, but what we've learned is as long as we didn't promise them time slots and we got lead times, like how much call ahead they needed, then they're generally really easy to deal with. And then another thing we do is at whatever point of the day we know that we're not going to get to the last call. Like if they sell out their whole day and it's 10 o'clock in the morning and we're like, I know that Tyler's not going to get to this call, we'll actually immediately call the rest of the customers on the schedule and say, hey, just want to let you know we got really tied up today. So right now the technician we have on your list, it does not look like he's going to be able to get to you today. But if it's all right with you, I would like to go ahead and move you on to tomorrow's schedule. But just to help out, I can leave you on today as a flex call in case one of our other technicians get done early. Maybe we can still come by and take care of it. But I at least want to lock you in for tomorrow to make sure we get you taken care of. Is that okay? Most customers will be thrilled because people don't mind being flexible. They mind being surprised. And so if we wait till 4:30 to tell them that we're not going to make it today, now they're mad.
Yeah.
But if we call them at 10 o'clock in the morning, they can make arrangements and do what they got to do. Does that help? So Adam sent you some lists, some scripts. Check them out. If you got questions, feel free to reach out to us. You've probably talked to some of our CSR coaches and stuff since you've been here. You might have been in some of our classes, or did you only watch videos?
We took one with, I think, David Stewart, and I don't remember the lady's name. I think it was Michelle.
Oh, that's not with us. But
Then
that's
no,
all right.
That's the only meeting I've been.
Okay. All right. Well, I have some CSR coaches and stuff that work with us. Another one of our trainers, her name's Suzanne. Some of your techs would have talked to her about different things. She runs a call center up in Michigan and is a dispatcher for a company she owns up there too. And then I got another one that Richard knows that her name's Amy. She teaches our full dispatching course coming up in March and November every year. So we've got one coming up that we can get you guys in. But then she's always available to help answer questions and stuff. But she runs a call center for like 5 different companies and does inbound and outbound calls and dispatching. And so they do like outbound calling to generate work. They do inbound call taking and then dispatching to techs and technician debriefings. Her company takes over their entire office so that those companies don't even have to have anybody in their seats. It's kind of neat. But she is we call her the CSR sergeant. She is really good, really top notch. But just doesn't take a lot of bullshit. She just says, hey, this is why we're in business. This is what we do, and this is how we do it, and it works. But we just can't, as the office, we can't take the BS from the service techs. Because the service techs are the world's best at coming up with reasons why what you're going to be doing is wrong, why they have to see their schedule every day, because I got to know what parts I need and all that. Well, no, you don't, because we don't know who's going to be doing those parts yet. Yeah, ideally it's you, but we want to make sure that you can maximize your job. So we're going to set you up for success so that you make more money and we make more money too. And like I was talking to Richard earlier, my favorite incentive plans for CSRs and dispatchers is for there to be bonus structures based off of the success of the trucks overall. So, like, as long as your trucks are all averaging over this, then everybody makes this much more money. And the thing is that happens really easily when we start paying attention to the calls that are coming in and paying attention to the ones that we think we're probably not going to do very well on. If we don't think we're going to do very well on them and it affects your paycheck if we don't do well on them, then you're less likely to send a truck to that instead of something else.
So ours, the way we make more money is if we book all of our calls. So we're not really, we are allowed to say like, this isn't going to be our customer, we're not going to make very much money, but then that hurts us. So then we still book the call because
Right.
that's how we get our bonuses.
But what I want you to understand is what we talked about. There's two hats you guys are wearing right now. And that's why it's a little confusing. You're wearing a CSR hat. The CSR's hat is to book every job. It is. You got to get them all booked. So if you're getting them booked, that's a good thing. Then you have the dispatcher hat. And when I say a hat, do you recognize what that means?
It would be like two different roles, but I feel like we have to play both.
But you do because you don't have enough. Are you with me? And so you actually do have enough, but we would have to literally cut it and say, you are the sole dispatcher and you two only answer the phone. And we can do that, but there's still going to be a time when you got to go to lunch and one of them has to play dispatcher. So you're all going to have a time that you're going to have both hats. But they're completely separate roles. But as long as you view them as such, then we book the call. Then the dispatcher decides if we're going to run the call. Running the call and booking the call are two different things. Does that make sense? So I want you to get your money by booking the call. But then when we run the call, there can be more money if we run a call by putting the right tech on the right job, and then that tech has all the opportunities to maximize that job, collect it, and complete it in as little amount of time as possible so that profits go up. And so I like there to be both. You've got your incentive here for getting everything booked, and your incentive here to making sure that we stay profitable. And a lot of companies don't look at it like this. They look at the CSRs and dispatchers as not as an unimportant thing, but just as that's just an office position. You literally control whether or not this company is going to be profitable is mostly up to you. I'm not saying that that's to put pressure on you. I'm saying that that's how important your jobs are. That we've got to book them because we generate money from them, but then we've got to make the right selections. It's a game. And you're literally playing a game of chess against a computer, and you've got to make the moves that put the right guy to set them up for the best success. And so as long as we do that successfully, everybody wins, and we can all make a lot more money. And so that's ultimately how I want. I talked to Richard about that this morning. I sent him some information on it. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. But he knows that things need to change, or he wouldn't have asked me to talk to you guys. And I wasn't here today to disrupt things, which is why I tried not to come in and just say, you're going to do this and this and this and stop doing that and stop doing this. I'm not here. I just want you to start thinking, hey, what is my job? How does it impact it? What's the goal? And what can we do to do better? And the goal is just 1%. If we can just improve on these couple of little categories that we talked about today, it'll make a big difference. And then we can talk and improve more as we go. Sound good? Because if you look at like my company's numbers, they were insane. Most people, I don't even always talk about them because a lot of people don't think they're real. Because our service techs, if we ran 100 jobs, we closed 98. And what that means is we collected money above the cost of the service charge on 98 out of 100. And our average service ticket was over $1,000. So if we ran 100 calls, we generally made over $100,000 of service repair revenue on 100 calls with a 98% closing rate and a 98% customer satisfaction rate. Like, our numbers were amazing. But it's important to know that through all of that, my CSRs were and dispatchers were fire. Like, they were super, super top notch, but they didn't have anything that y'all can't beat. They just really, really, really knew what their job was. And their job was to book the call and put the right tech on the right job. And if there was a call that came in that wasn't a customer that would fit our company culture, that customer got referred out. But it was the dispatcher's job to decide that, not the CSR's. And so that's the piece I want you to understand is CSRs booked everything. Dispatcher sent probably 2 to 3 calls a day to our competition. Just by saying, yeah, we're not going to do good there, send it over there. And what that did is it kept our competition busy so that we had a higher opportunity for more of those calls to come back for us to capture more of our primary customer. And that's what we wanted. It was always about not quantity, it was all quality. And if you look at quality and profitability as your number one, you'll have happier customers and everybody will just have less stress. Goes a long ways. Anything else? Good, boss? Awesome. Well,
All of it. I think wear two hats all the time, so we probably need to make sure that we're wearing one when we answer the phone to book the job, and then we're definitely a lot of changes.
one thing to help with that, Gracie, and then for all of you, is when you're communicating to the customer, especially the first time, it doesn't matter if you're the dispatcher too. You can still use the dispatcher hat as the reason not to give them certain information. So it's kind of like, all right, well, here's the deal. I'm going to go ahead and get you on the schedule, and I'm going to put a flag on here that says you really want to get this done Thursday afternoon, if at all possible. And then I'm going to notify our dispatchers and let them take a look at it and see if they can find a place to get you in, right? Or see when they can find the soonest spot to get you in, hopefully that Thursday afternoon slot you want. As soon as we know that, we'll shoot you a message or call you and let you know what's up so we're all on the same page. Phone call's okay, or do you prefer a text message? Like, we'll just do that. And at which case, you can be the one that calls them right back. You might call them back in an hour just to say, hey, it looks like I do have a slot that's pending on that Thursday, so I'm going to go ahead and put you on that for now. But I'm going to keep this open on our flex list just in case something opens up sooner. Is that fair enough? They'll say, yeah. So we can always be the ones to call them back, but we don't want to be backed into a corner just because we have them on the phone. And the reason we say that is because we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. We don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. If it's a busy day, you might get another phone call right after them that's way more important than them that wants that same slot. Or I'd much rather give it to the more important call if I can. So, but we just got to be willing to recognize that. So you can use the dispatcher because you're all doing a little bit of all of it. You can use it as a figurative hat just to communicate to customers, even though you're going to be the one making the decision. But because sometimes we just need time. We just need a few minutes to just really look at it and decide, all right, are we going to do this today or not? Or are we going to have to book them out? And if we're going to book them out, that still doesn't mean we got to be backed into a corner and guarantee this day. That's why I say, hey, I've got you down on the plan for this day, but I'm also going to put you on our flex list. So if something comes up sooner or has to change, we'll just let you know.
So what happens if they're like kind of a Karen and we're thinking we're probably not going to make any money, or if we do have to do a big repair there, they're probably going to be a headache the whole time?
So one thing that we didn't talk about here today is how we prioritize. If you've watched our fluid dispatching videos, you've seen some of it. But I mentioned we prioritize customers based on geographic and demographic, but geographic first, meaning exactly where do they live? Because, Richard, have you ever done a heat map with criteria of, say, the people that have bought, over $500 service repairs, but say less than 5,000. Have you ever done a heat map to see where in your area you get the most work from?
Yeah, we have that on service type. If you go all the way to the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
y'all girls have probably saw it, but it's a
Yeah.
map. But then it shows every zip code, and if you just put your cursor over it, it'll really tell you how much money you made in each zip code. Did y'all see that?
Yeah, I've seen
Okay, y'all saw that. Yeah.
Is
Down the bottom?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
can you change the filters
Yeah, you can change it to the day, to the year, the month, whatever you want.
to different criteria?
Like
Yeah, but-
business unit though?
so, like-
chimney?
Yeah, I can go to just hit at the top. It'll have business units, and it always says all. You can go in there and uncheck mark and just go to chimney only or high back. Or is that what
Okay,
you're saying?
yeah. So, but it's something that you should do
Mhm.
to notify them of customer priorities. And so, what I mean by that is, we prioritize customers on 3 levels: priority 1, 2, and 3. A priority 1 customer is somebody that lives in an area that 8 out of 10 times that one of our truck visits that area, it's a really great job and we get the job. Now, that doesn't mean we sell them a new chimney. That's great when that happens. That can be that. But what I mean is we go there one time, and while we're there, they pick an option that's a big option. So we always call that bronze or higher. So they chose, or silver and higher, whatever it is, but they chose bronze and higher on the first visit. 8 out of 10 calls, 8 out of 10 jobs that we go to that area, bronze or higher first visit. That's a good area to go. Would you agree?
No, I agree.
And so that would be what we would call a priority 1 area. Priority 3 area is an area that we go to that 8 out of 10 times we go there, it's not a good call, meaning it's a service charge only, or a Band-Aid at best, or a complaint. And so, in which case, we mark those as priority 3 areas. Everywhere else that's inside that 50-mile radius you're talking about, everywhere else is priority 2. That means they're just everyday customers. We want to get to them if we can. But anytime we had a priority 1 customer hit the board, they would go in front of everybody, Karen or not. Like, they don't have to complain because we're like, oh, that's a good area. They're going next. We'll move other people off of it. But like when you're talking about the Karen, some people in high priority areas are eccentric people that
That's a good word.
are less than. Sometimes, I'll be straight with you. Last year, I had somebody write us a check at the new flat rate for $30,000. 3 days later, I sent the check back to them, even though they asked me not to, because he was a jerk. He had hung up on 5 of my people in 3 days, and he was an asshole, and I refused to work for him. And so I literally took a call to find out why this guy had hung up on 3 of my people, and I talked to him for 10 minutes, and I said, you're just not a fit. He says, we are, but you're going to do this and this and this for us. And I'm like, no, we're not, because we're not your slaves. We are people. We give great service and work, but you don't own us. I wrote you a $30,000 check. No, you didn't, because I'm sending it back. And I sent it back, and we canceled them, and I will not work for the guy. He can call and beg. We will not work for him. So I want you to understand, some people in priority 1 areas burn bridges, and we don't work for them anymore. But the thing is I can work for an eccentric person that's a little bit more difficult to deal with for a big enough check, as long as they're not degrading to my people. Does that make sense?
That'd be a good one to use, though.
Yeah.
We was working with Brandy. She used to do that. She said, hey, we only were able to take a select amount of customers in a given year, and you're just not going to be a good fit for us. So I will recommend this other company. They're a certified chimney sweep company, blah, blah, blah.
I like how you said that, in a given year. That's a good way to put that.
And, well, just because in chimneys, they get so many calls, we can't get them all.
Yeah.
It's like, but
Well, but that's what. So, by the way, these 3 lovely ladies you have here are pretty convinced that if they tell somebody to go somewhere else, they're going to get fired. Just so you know. So. So-
I should have get that corrected then. Yeah.
we might need to work on clarity there, because I told them, they're like, we're not allowed to send people elsewhere. I'm like, I don't know about that. So
I want y'all to, if somebody's being a Karen to y'all, whatever you call the guy one, I don't even know what it's called. But anyways,
Steve.
yeah, Kyle. Yeah, Kyle, whatever. I mean,
There's another word for it, but
if
it's not
y'all
not
if y'all
appropriate.
got first impressions, and because we can go in and listen to a call real easily with service type now. I mean, yeah, let's make this problem go away before it becomes a bigger problem, right? Case
Well-
in case, like Preble. What if he was being like what Matt just said? Went over. If we could have
Save
just
money.
prevented a storm, right? Before in the making, if I gave y'all that leverage to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like if y'all would have said, man, Richard, I really think you need to probably listen to this call. I know Cody or you're probably going to go out to here. I just want you to see if this is going to be an ideal customer for us first before we actually even make this firm commitment, right? Is that kind of what you're saying, Matt?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But see, that's that dispatcher's job. And so the CSR might have booked it anyway, but then the dispatcher has to come on and make that call to decide if we're actually going to go. And then we either refer them out or we keep them on the schedule, whatever it is. But we have to make that choice because remember, the most valuable asset we have is our people. And when you put the wrong person with the wrong customer, whether there was money there or not, we end up with a 1-star review or a lawsuit or something worse. And we don't want that. So it goes a long way. But so that's what we did is we would prioritize when they came in. So then when you're talking about the Karen that you don't believe has money, well, that means that she probably either doesn't have a job on welfare or something like that, but she's probably in one of our lower priority locations. And so then we're not going to put her in the front of the list anyway. So if she's in one of those, she becomes what's called a priority 3. A priority 3 customer, we don't carry past today, which means I either have a slot because I have nothing else to do today or I don't. And if my day's full, we would just tell her right there, I'm sorry, Karen, we're gonna have to refer you to somebody else. We're just not gonna be able to help you because I don't want to put you on the list and make you wait a long time because it sounds like you need somebody faster. Let me refer you out. And that prevents a low income call for us, and it actually helps her out at the same time. So it becomes a win-win. We are able to help people that aren't our customers. We're just not running the job for them.
Is that kind of like Amy got with us and worked out the flowers? It
Yeah.
kind of sounds, but it's not exact. I actually like priority what you just said. I don't know
Mhm.
if y'all agree, but our flowers kind of just like the sunflower and some of those other ones are more priority customers, right? But
Yep.
I don't know if we have it like demographically, right? Like what Matt's saying. It's more of just like this is wherever they're located at or whatever. It's either sunflower or what is it, cactus. I don't know. Orchid.
So you guys named them different, which
Yeah,
is fine.
named different.
Yeah.
We have them all on the wall. We'll show them to you in the CSR office.
Yeah.
But the priority, we're not looking at it at more of a broader perspective of demographics. We're just
So we're geographic and demographic.
Yeah.
So we look at, well, geographically, we look at like the heat map, but they had to match demographically too. So like we only had 5 neighborhoods in our entire service area that qualified for priority 1. And so in order to be a priority 1 customer, you either had to live in one of the 5 neighborhoods or be referred from somebody in one of the 5 neighborhoods. You could never bridge the gap otherwise. But in those neighborhoods, one of them was a mega, mega wealthy neighborhood. Only one of them because I can only work for so many of those people. But the reason I selected the mega wealthy neighborhood isn't because I love working for those people. It's because those people, at least where I'm at, employ thousands and thousands of customers that we would like. And so, and when I'm talking about mega wealthy, I'm talking about people that their houses are tens of millions of dollars. And so we have like one neighborhood like that we would serve. Then we had 2 neighborhoods that are, let's call them upper middle class, but they're neighborhoods that the managers of those super wealthy people live in. And they're managers that the demographic, they all make high into the 6 figures. So it's a lot of money, but it's not enough money for them to have like full-time maids and housekeepers. So they might have somebody that comes and cleans their house, but when something breaks in their house, it still requires them to take care of it. Are you with me? And so they don't have a full-time personal assistant for their personal life yet. And so the reason we like those neighborhoods is those people would always buy more premium options so they didn't have to worry about it again. because every problem is a big problem to them because it takes them away from their high paying job. Does that make sense? And then 2 of the neighborhoods were historic money areas, the locations in the area that the old money used to live in, but like now it's the up and coming millennial generation that like has money because they work hard, but they're buying into the older homes that are nice but used to be expensive because they think that's where rich people live. And the nice thing is they have enough money to fix up the old houses. And so those 5 neighborhoods got 100% of our marketing. And so all of our marketing and resources went to those 5 areas, and we grew out from there. Everybody else was either referrals or just long-term customers. But even service club members, that doesn't mean that you're a high priority in my company at all. It might give you some priority status in if there's 2 people on the board, they're both prioritized the same, one's a service club and one's not, maybe I'll push the service club customer first. But if I have a priority 1 and a priority 2, the priority 1 is going first unless they requested not to. And so then after that, we set what's called emergency levels. Emergency levels you already have. That's emergency 1, 2, or 3. It's emergency 1 means that there is like something smelling smoke or fire, or something's dumping water on the ground. Like if we don't get there, it's going to destroy their home. That's an emergency 1 that we need to get to right away. An emergency 2 is just an everyday type of service call. They just need to get something done. An emergency 3 is a maintenance or an estimate thinking about getting this done. It's pretty simple. But if you think of priority 1, 2, or 3 customer, an emergency 1, 2, or 3 customer, then they become fluid. And it says, okay, 3 customers hit the board. One of them's a priority 1 customer with an emergency 1. Which call do they get next? They get that next, right? I don't care. Next person available goes to that job because that is our top customer with an emergency. We must get there as quickly as possible. Even if the person we send there isn't the one to fix it, we at least got to get boots on that ground to show that we can help them out. And so then, but maybe you have a emergency 1 customer also that has a priority 2, but then you have an emergency 2 customer, priority 2 customer with an emergency 1. Well, my priority 1 customer with emergency 2, if they asked for the next slot, would be more important than the priority 2 with the emergency 1 because they are my number 1 customer. Does that make sense? But a lot of times the beauty of your real priority 1 customers is they love you. They love your services. And so when you're busy and you have some real emergencies on the schedule, if you just tell them that, they're usually like, oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, we just want to get on the list. We're flexible. Just call us when you're on the way. And so then we can move that priority 2 emergency 1 next to be able to get to that customer. Does that make sense? But if a priority 1 emergency 1 shows up, or a priority 1 emergency anything shows up, and they're like, I need you to get into the time slot, then we're going to get into that time slot. And it's not because we've told them that that's what they are. It's because we've learned to let, like in my company, those 5 neighborhoods made up 80% of our company's revenue. So in which case, hey, they kind of got what they needed within the bounds of they weren't allowed to be assholes to our people. As long as they were easy to deal with, we were easy to deal with, and they always got great service. But we didn't have to run the volume either. So like when you're talking about being booked out months, it just floors me. And it's not because that's a bad thing, that's a great thing. But when I think of booking out months, I'm like, what are we not doing that we can capitalize more? Because like if I'm booked out that far, I'm either not charging enough, or I'm not doing something that's making us book out that far. And we're creating this busy feeling as a company of, oh my gosh, we're so far booked out. Even if an emergency 1, priority 1 called in, we couldn't help them anyway. Like I never, ever, ever, ever want that to happen. And so, sure, we have a lot of people waiting for our services. You know why? Because we're awesome. That's the way we take it. We have people waiting because we're awesome. We're going to get to who we can, but I can tell you one thing. We're going to get to the people that have the money and that love us first. And anybody we can get to after, it's just the gravy and the help. And we'll do what we can.
And I know a lot of chimney companies, once they get booked up a certain amount, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they raise their prices.
I would raise my prices all of a sudden. So somebody, so somebody in the company has to be in charge of capacity at one point. And capacity is, hey, how many jobs per department do we even have the ability to service on average? And so we always look at it as here's today is here. Then this 1 day out, which is tomorrow, 2 days out, 3 days out, 4 days out, etc., on work days. And so we always want to be looking at capacity on a 10-day scale. But on a 10-day scale, we have to know that certain things are going to come in naturally, but sometimes they don't. And so, but somebody always has to be looking at this. So like if I look 10 days out right now, so like, well, let's take tomorrow, for example. It's almost 4 o'clock. If I don't have anything on the schedule tomorrow, what can I do about it right now?
Start calling people.
Not a lot is the real answer. Why? It's too late. Now I can make some calls, I can do, and I might be able to pick up a few. But is it fair to say that within an hour I can book out all of our techs for a full day tomorrow if we had nothing? No, that's not fair. And so, at which case, we're not looking out far enough. So I always teach companies, especially when it's slow, don't worry about tomorrow. Let tomorrow take care of itself. Let's move 10 days out and start there. And then we work backwards. And so we fill capacity like this, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as we go through. So if we figure 10 days out, I want 10 days out to always be at like 20% capacity. So if I can take 10 calls a day, I need to have 2 calls already booked 10 days out. Does that make sense? And then if I go 9 days out, 9 work days out, then I probably can do something like 30%. So I can have 3 calls booked. 8 days out, I might be at 40%. I might be 50, 55, 60, 65, 75, 85, something like that. But generally, more than somewhere between 80 and 85, according to your business, what we're dealing with. I don't want tomorrow to ever be booked more than about 80, 85% of capacity. Why? Case of emergencies. Because emergencies are going to show up, or even if no emergencies show up, I want my techs maximizing jobs, and somebody's going to sell out their day or something, and we're going to need to move around. And so when we're booking out, we've always got to leave emergency buffer. So whether you cushion, whether we're chimneys and we're just doing sweeps or whatever it is, we got to have some cushion there. Otherwise, that sense of rush happens. And when our technicians are rushed, what happens? We already talked about it. Revenue goes down, callbacks go up. Every time. Callbacks make us rush more, and it wrecks the whole thing. So when we look at it like capacity for what you're talking about, then all of a sudden, if I'm seeing that 10 days out, we're naturally at 80% across the board already. Okay, what does that mean? Well, why are so many people willing to wait? A, we probably need to raise our prices. Let's not wait till next year. Let's just do it right now. And so at which case, starting on day 11, everything's an extra $100. What else can we do? Starting on day 11, we now collect service charges just to put them on the schedule. And so like how much is the service charge for a chimney sweep? $200?
For a chimney sweep?
Yeah.
If it was in SkySeek, it'd probably be $279.
Okay.
About $280.
So the point is, do you collect that on the phone just to put them on the schedule?
No.
I would. There's no way I would book out months without collecting every single one of them today. And so every single person that calls, hey, we're booked 3 months out, we collect up front. And the other thing we can do is, like, I've got another friend of mine that he's got a service business in like 5 states. So it's all about how you word it. So first of all,
I think you just ask money. I'm just kind of.
I have a company that runs 9,000 service calls a day that collects up front to put them on the schedule.
Is it the full amount or just like
All of it.
All of it? Okay.
Yep. All of it. Just takes it all.
Awesome, really.
And The reason being is customers don't mind when you're in demand, you're in charge.
Well, the reason I bring that up, Matt, is because they get a lot of cancellations, and I've been looking at that heavy, like during these 2 to 3 months, right? And a lot of times the customers, they're still shopping around,
Right.
even though that they booked with us, and then they get a 24-hour, I don't know, confirmation,
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh man, I'm so sorry, I forgot to tell you, and then it messes them up, and then they're trying to fill that up.
Right.
I mean, that's just
But
how-
why are they shopping around?
because they're trying to get somebody sooner, I would think, and then
They're shopping
Sooner,
around
cheaper.
because we never took them out of the market.
yeah,
So-
they get nothing, there's no skin in the
And
game.
you and I have talked about this before, but you guys haven't. You guys ever go to your number one shopping center in Skytook, Walmart? Ever go to Walmart? What is it? So, oh, Skytook. Sorry, but here in Skytook, you guys have Walmart, right? You ever went to a Walmart and you paid for all your stuff at the checkout, but then before you left the store, you thought, I'm just going to take one more lap around the store to see if I want to buy anything else. You ever done that just for kicks and giggles, like after you paid? Usually not. Usually, if you're going to walk around and just see, you do that before you pay, do you not? Yep. The reason being, but the thing is what happens is we learned that when people pay at the checkout, they leave the store. And the reason is their mind, their subconscious mind has stopped shopping. And so we learned that when we take money from a customer, they stop shopping mentally. So something in their mind says, all right, I'm booked. I don't have to look for any more chimney companies. I'm already taken care of. I'm on the schedule. They're going to let me know if they can get to me sooner, but at least I'm confirmed if they can't. And so they're just automatically locked in. And so that's very, very, very helpful in locking in customers. So whatever the price is, Richard, you can play with it. You could change it, from your $279 to a $60 booking fee if you wanted. That applies towards the total when you go. It doesn't bother me how you do it. I just looked at, hey, what are these companies that have high demand jobs like you guys do? What are they doing to make sure that they are profitable, efficient, and their booking percentages stay up and their show-up rates stay up? And the thing that keeps coming back is they're reporting that the companies that collect the service charge just to put people on the schedule, their closing rate is generally, they've been reporting about 15% higher than companies that don't. And the closing rate is customers that bought more than the minimum. And then also the ones that book, that take the money up front, have lower cancellations, and then way lower cancellations, almost none. And then the ones that book up front, the customer satisfaction tends to go up as well. But pest control's been doing that for, 20 years. They'll yeah. You gotta pay. Yeah. And they'll pay. And so a lot of times you'll buy the service, kind of like you guys know in the chimney sweeps. But like last time I called pest control, I paid them $300 to show up. And they told me, they said the tech will come out, do your initial treatment, and then he'll go over your maintenance options and stuff with you at that time. So then they talked to me about the upkeep after that. So it's there. Pest control, to the air conditioning. I own a house in South Carolina also, and I don't live in South Carolina. I live in Georgia. And so I needed an air conditioning company to go out there last year, and I paid them $279 to go on their schedule. By credit card before they went. So, and you know what? I didn't worry about it because when I paid them, what did I know would happen? I knew that I was important to them, right? I knew they were going to show up and they were going to take care of it. So it was there. Whereas if I hadn't paid them anything, I might be like, well, what if they get busy? Maybe I should call around. Somebody else get there sooner. But once I'd paid them, it's not like I was going to call around and shop them. It was too late at that point. So it's really just how you word it, but it's not that difficult, because if you needed something in your home, and so you called a home service company and say, hey, I need help. And they say, hey, great, don't worry, no worries. We can definitely help you with that. You know what? Let's go ahead and get you on the schedule. Let me get your information, yada, yada, yada. Okay, great. Hey, in order to go ahead and lock in your slot here, we've got a slot available coming up in 3 weeks. to get that taken care of. But I really want to put you on our flex list as well, which means we're going to get to you hopefully sooner than that. As soon as something opens up, we'll let you know. But you're definitely confirmed there. But in order to keep that confirmation, it is a $279 service charge. That's going to cover the initial inspection and the sweep that your technician does when he comes out there. Did you want to put that on a MasterCard, Visa, or a different type of credit card right now? You just take it, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, okay. Let me go ahead and do that." They might say, "Well, can I pay you when you come out?" Say, "Sorry, in order to lock in your slot because we're so booked out, we do have to have a credit card on file in order to guarantee your slot today. Did you want to put that on a Visa, MasterCard, or a different type of card?" And so, or just what type of credit card you want to use. And you just, we always use the assumptive close. And the assumptive close says, they called us, we didn't call them, which means we're just assuming that they want to say yes. So we help them say yes. Oh, I run it right then. You run it right then. You put it in and you run the card. Yep. And then generally, a lot of companies, that amount, if it was selected up front for your information, Richard, a lot of times the cards collected by the office don't go towards the technician's numbers either.
So I'm wondering if that didn't work, if we could just be like, well, we'll go ahead and collect the $50 cancellation fee, and if you don't cancel, then we'll go ahead and just put that towards your fee section.
What Grace is saying is we've always.
I got it.
You know,
Yep, and that would make sense. But now I have a company, a friend of mine that owns a plumbing company, and he's got guys now, I think, in 5 states. And his company is it's different. His company is different. His model's different, but it's pretty cool. So when you call his company, his automated system gives you the options, and they have 3 of them. They have emergency service within an hour, and at which case you push number 1 and it takes your credit card for $500. And they'll have somebody at your house within an hour. You push number 2 to have somebody there the same day, and it's like $250. Or you push number 3 to just go on their flex list, and it's like $69. He's plumbing, but the point is most of the customers do number 1 or number 2, and they pay the system and everything before we even go. And but if you have somebody that's concerned about it, they'll just pick the $60 one and get on the list. But he focuses on emergency service. Hey, you called a premium company to help you solve a problem. We're going to do that. And so I was reading. Well, actually, I went to an event last week with Alex Hermosi. You know who Alex is, right? Yeah. So, but the thing is he said, if you doubled your prices, reality has proven that you would not lose 25% of your customer base. Matter of fact, it's incredibly rare that you even lose 5 or 6%. It's usually like 1 or 2%, even if you doubled your prices today. But even if you doubled your prices and you lost 25% of your customers because of it, we would still end up making twice the profits with 25% less customers than we would have before. And once we realize that, it's just a whole lot easier to make decisions like this. That first of all, if we ask customers to do this, they're not all going to quit. You know, they're not going to cancel. And even if while you're learning the script and stuff, we lose a few of them, if all of a sudden you had 2 months worth of customers that had already paid you $100 to be on the schedule, do you think more of them would stick around and wait for us? Yeah, we know they would. But even if some of them didn't, we're not going to give them their money back. So is that better for us?
Yeah.
It's better for us too. And so the thing is the only negative in the whole process of taking money up front is you might get a prospect that has never worked with us before that says, I don't want to do that. At which case, if they say no, does that mean that they're somebody that was more likely or less likely to say yes when we got out there? Probably less likely. You know, if they say no to paying the service charge up front, they were probably more likely to say no to the actual service and repair. And so are we really out anything? And so all of this can be scaled by watching what we call the closing rate, which is when your technicians go to a job that prepaid versus one that didn't, which one is a better job with the customer. And most companies are reporting that prepaid service charges have more success than ones that haven't. Especially when you're crediting back the service charge towards repair, because like your service charge on an HVAC call is what, 200, $100? Okay, so like 125. If we collected that on the phone, and then the technician goes out and shows them options in the new flat rate, and they say, hey, by the way, remember, you get $125 off of any of these. All of a sudden, the customer's like, oh yeah, go ahead and do it. And it's kind of mean, but it's what we call girl math. But it's a real thing, and people really do it. It's not only girls. People look at it and say, oh, I save $125 by saying go ahead today. Okay, go ahead and do it. Not even thinking that they paid the $125, right? But they just do it, and it actually works. And that's where the boost in the closing rate comes from, is that girl math concept of it's free money, because that was 2 weeks ago. So anyway.
If we get up front, I think that's a win-win on both sides, because not only do they go and value the customer, kind of better off to close that hole, but the technicians will get reminded that if they're looking to have off, remember the CSR didn't tell me that.
Yep.
Let's go with the option today, because if I'm gonna get that where we go with, but
Yep.
$199 where, I think that'll make it to where not only booking rates, but closing rates.
It's both. Yeah, it's a big win all the way across the board. So those are some ideas and things that should be rolled out. So then I'll leave it to y'all to work together and work with Richard to say, hey, what are the pieces you're going to put in now? But start with your script. Let's get your script cleaned up. Look at the ones Adam sent you. Compare it with that and say, hey, what do we need to do different here to make it flow better? And does everybody? And we got to go. I know we've been sitting here too long. But do all of you know why a script is so important? It does. But a script allows two things. Number one, it provides what we call consistent results. We know that once we get your script dialed in, if 100 people call in, this many will book, guaranteed. And so we can control that with the script, no matter which one of you answers the phone. That's a big deal. And now some of you might do better than others and have higher booking rate, but we know we'll at least see this. The second thing about a script is, let's just say tomorrow, Richard got an investor to help with Comfort Class, and they said, all right, Richard, we're going to drop $1 million worth of marketing in Skyatook. Now, if we dropped $1 million worth of marketing on radios, TVs, and billboards for Comfort Class around here in 1 month, what would happen to the amount of phone calls that we would get? They would easily triple, right? They would go through the roof. And so all of a sudden, would you be able to handle it? No, you wouldn't. So, but what a script does is it's called scalability. It literally allows us to call the temp service down the street, say, send us 5 people that know how to answer the phones. They show up, you set the script in front of them, you say, this is your job, pick up the phone, read that, write down what they say here, and pass it over to Alyssa so that she can put it in the computer. Like on day 1, they could do that. Whereas today, if we had to teach a new CSR how to do your job, it would be really hard. It would be difficult. It would take time. But we could teach them just to pick up the phone, read that right here, and give it to you. And we could actually keep our booking rate up, even with somebody that didn't know Service Titan and didn't know all this other things. And then we could teach them those things over time. That makes sense? So the script is always scalability and consistency. And it really, really does a lot. So, and then personally, I kind of like, I haven't done this, but I've been wanting to play with CSR scripts that are color-coded. For the fact that a problem with being a CSR is customers drag you in different directions. So it's like you're trying to ask these questions, and then they're like, oh, but what about this? And what about this? And you're like, oh my gosh, what did I miss? And so if you kind of thought about like, red, yellow, green, of, hey, we've got to get from red to yellow to green before we can hang up that phone, then no matter where they take us, I got to go back and finish red. I got to go back and finish green. I got to get through this. I haven't figured out how to make that work. But CSR scripts always need to be fluid. You got to be able to jump out of one concept into another and then back to where you were to actually finish it as well. So, all right. Well, hey, thank you so much. I'll let y'all finish it. out your day. But if there's anything that we can do for you, feel free to reach out at any time. Richard's got all of our contact information. Adam can give it to you this week too. You're welcome to call me personally, but I'm teaching all the time, so I'm not as readily available. But we do have people that can help you out if you ever need anything. Okay. All right. Well, hey, thank you. We need some boom boom music. There we go. Beatbox time. A little bit.
We can start small with some of these things, like what he was saying, what you were just saying, Gracie. Oh, you just press it and hold it. Did you get it?
I did.
Okay. Is it not turning on?
Adam, we gotta get my audio system
But just
set
like
up
you're saying about,
and
I
that
mean,
set
that
up.
would help y'all a lot, right? If you could get money
You ready
from
to do
this
that?
to word it, like,
We ready to do that?